The final construction that we're going to be doing in this particular class is inscribing a circle inside of a triangle. What that means is that we're going to have a circle inside of the triangle that's going to hit the triangle only once per side. Right? We don't want it to go outside of it, and we want to make sure that it hits. We don't want it to be down here anywhere. So it's going to hopefully hit each time. Now, before I even start this, I just want you to know that the compasses that you use will affect how accurate your construction comes out to be. If you're using not really the best compass, they're going to end up slightly shifting, and the widths are going to change slightly. So if it's not perfect, it's most likely due to the compass itself not staying right where you want it to be. The other thing is that when you draw your lines, you need to make sure that you hit the points that you create perfectly. If you're off by a little bit, it's going to end up making the end result off by a little bit too. So don't get discouraged if your inscribed circle isn't perfect. I mean, if it's way off, then you might have messed up somewhere, but if it's just slightly off, it's probably the compass. So that's my little disclaimer about that. So let's look at the process. This particular construction involves using angle bisectors. So we're going to be using at least 2 angle bisectors. You can choose any of these angles that you want to bisect. I'm going to be starting using this angle right here. So if we remember to make an angle bisector, we're going to take our compass, we're going to adjust it to be a little bit, just about 1/3 of the width of one of the rays, and we're going to draw an arc that crosses both rays of the angle. Then, without adjusting the compass, I'm going to put the non-writing point at one of the intersections I just made, create an arc inside the angle, and then I'm going to move the non-writing point to the other intersection, create an arc inside the angle, and there I have an intersection. Then I'm going to line up my ruler or straight edge so that it meets these exactly where I need them to be. Right? That point right here and this point right here, we have to do our best to make sure that when we draw our line, it hits both of those dead on. Now, I'm going to use a light color for this part. What you might end up doing later, if you're using pencil, is we're going to end up erasing all that stuff. So I'm using a light color so that we can see through it at the end. Because these really aren't part of our end result. They're just kind of in the way. So I'm going to make a second angle bisector. I'm going to bisect this angle this time. So here's the first part of that angle bisector. I move it over, create an arc inside. I move this here, create my second arc. Line it up the best that I possibly can. Take my writing utensil. I'm going to go lightly through it. Now, if you notice, our 2 angle bisectors intersect. We're going to be using that point. So I'm going to make sure that I make that point very clear. Now, the next step to this actually involves a perpendicular bisector. Not necessarily bisector, but a perpendicular line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my compass and put the non-writing point on that intersection we just created. I'm going to close my compass a little bit. I want it to be a little bit past that side of the triangle. Now you could do this to any of the sides you want. I'm doing it on this side. Okay, I'm going to create an arc that hits this triangle twice. Okay, I hit it once here and once here. Then I'm going to take my compass without changing the width. I'm going to put the non-writing point on one of those intersections right here. I'm going to create an arc. And then I'm going to move it without adjusting to this other intersection. I'm going to create another arc. Notice that they cross. And again, I'm going to do my best to make sure that this lines up just perfectly. Now, before I draw my line, I'm going to point something out to you. We want to figure out exactly where this crosses, because if I'm drawing a circle, I'm going to make sure that it hits exactly where I need it to, and that's going to be the radius of the circle. And once I start drawing my circle, I'm going to notice that it's going to hit exactly where I need it to every time. So we don't have to draw the line all the way through, we just want to make sure it's lined up. So this is a key point right here. The final step to this, we're going to go back to the center with our non-running point, and we're going to line up our compass so that it hits exactly where it needs to be. It's right there on the edge of this triangle. And I can go and I can check and just make sure. Like, I notice it might be a little bit off, so my compass might need to move just slightly and be readjusted. Right? And all I have to do at this point is just draw the circle. Okay. As I told you at the very beginning of this video, I mean, yes, it does cross a little bit more than it should on this edge. It hits perfectly here and here, but we're not using the most precise tools ever. I'm using, a Staples brand. Works really well, but it's not computerized and it's not perfectly set. So, of course, it's going to be a little bit off, so don't get discouraged. Just do the best with it you can. You want your result to look as close to inscribed as you possibly can. So practice this one. This one's kind of neat, using different techniques to get that inscribed circle, and it looks kind of cool at the end too.